Why do coriander leaves and cilantro taste like soap for some people? Hi there, Danny here. Have you ever eaten something like a curry or a sandwich or guacamole or anything else for that matter and happened to be greeted by a horrific mouldy soap taste? No? Well, you are one of the lucky ones. I also am one of those lucky ones. Let's delve a little deeper. Why does a whopping 10% of people taste soap instead of the usual herb-like taste of cilantro, also known as coriander leaves here in the UK? Well, it's all down to genetics. All the cells in our body contain DNA. It's our genetic blueprint that tells what goes where, which process to carry out, and how it should all be designed. All humans share a common DNA code. This is called a genome, but between person to person, there can be minor variations along the way. The human genome is 3 billion base pairs long. 3 billion parts of our body's instructions that can go wrong or be different in some way. Some changes may be good, like increased VO2 max capacity for athletes, or detrimental, as in the case of genetic diseases. While others may lead to something small, like a change in a particular taste perception. Ah, now we're getting somewhere. A peer-reviewed study in 2012 by Nicholas Erickson et al., which is Latin for "and others," scientists say, published in the journal BMC, Biomed's Central Flavor, dug deeper into the genetics, along with the personal genetic testing company 23andMe. What did they find and how did they do it? The team of scientists set out to investigate why the leaves of the Coriander sativum plant, cilantro, or just big standard coriander leaves to you and I, are perceived to have such dramatically varying tastes between some people. They carried out what is known as a genome-wide analysis study, or GWAS for short. This is where entire genomes are compared across many individuals to identify any variations in the genetic code, and what trait this may or may not give rise to. They gathered the data for 14,604 European descended participants who stated that they dislike coriander leaves. This was replicated with 11,851 participants. These participants put forward some of their DNA, which was a little swab of the inner cheek with a sterile cotton bud. That's all it took. And these were then genotyped using Illumina genotyping machines that analyzed the genetic sequence of the individual and allowed for comparison against a control or normal human genetic genome sequence. Any differences between the two were recorded. If lots of people who all disliked coriander leaves had a genetic change all in a similar place along our 3 billion base pair genome, we can begin to say it might be genetically based. It was found that a single nucleotide polymorphism, SNP for short, called RS729-21001 on the OR6A2 gene gave rise to this soapy taste phenomenon. In non-sciencey speak, what this means is that a very specific part of our genetic code, when different in a very specific way, gives a different taste perception when it comes to coriander leaves. Why, I hear you cry? Well, the answer is aldehydes. This SNP on the OR6A2 gene reportedly affects olfactory responses in the brain, meaning that these aldehydes are detected differently by that individual. These aldehydes include decanal, 2-decanal, and 2-undecanal, all of which can be found on many soaps or lotions. For those with this genetic SNP, these aldehydes taste incredibly strong and mask the 2-decanoic acid and linalool that give rise to coriander's regular herb-like flavour. It's beginning to sound a bit like a chemistry set. Well, just because something is natural doesn't mean it doesn't contain chemicals. Everything is a chemical, even water. And all of these natural chemicals play a big role when it comes to taste perception when combined with their own genetics. Interestingly enough, the study concluded that this trait has a low probability of being hereditary. it's not likely to be passed down from parent to child. This means it happens by chance prior to birth, by an environmental stimulus, or by the body changing and modifying its DNA. The plot thickens. One additional important thing to note is that with the genome-wide association study, the same SNP was not identified in a replicate group. Now this is really important as it means there is still some degree of uncertainty regarding this conclusion. Take it with a pinch of salt, in other words. More testing is required to really be sure. Us scientists like to get it right. So does this solve all the questions? One on the tip of my tongue. This analysis was done on people with European ancestry. How does a similar test fare with people of non-European ancestry? Are there any part of the world where this trait is really prominent? Similarly, are there any groups of people who don't possess this trait at all? Well, the BMC Flavor Journal comes to the rescue again. Scientists have already analysed this. Moya et al. In 2012 looked at the preference of cilantro across ethno-cultural groups. 21% of East Asians reported to dislike cilantro, 17% of European Caucasians, like myself, 14% of those of African descent. However, low percentages were reported for South Asians, Hispanics and Middle Easterners at 7, 4 and 3% respectively, meaning they are much less likely to dislike cilantro, which is probably why coriander and cilantro is much more common in these regional dishes. Still more questions remain though, I think. Are there any other similar genetically influenced tastes different that we don't know about yet? Are there any other genes or SNPs involved in coriander aldehyde taste perception that are perhaps rarer and didn't show up in the genome-wide analysis study? Does a thing known as epigenetics, a type of DNA modification, come into play? If you are a flavour scientist who likes genetics, or a geneticist who likes the study of flavours, here's one for you. I've been Danny Ward, and this has been Knowledgica. Stay hungry for factuality.